Holy upgrade, Batman. Your Denver Broncos just got one of the most massive upgrades of all time. We are talking about our special teams coordinator, the Rizzler himself, Darren Rizzi. Why he's not just like a fantastic special teams coordinator, but as an assistant head coach, the Denver Broncos are going to be nasty next year. If you're new to this channel, I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan. We've got to talk about our secret weapon, Darren Rizzi. So first off, like we are talking a Dan Campbell type leader, just looking at pictures of him from college. He reminds me a lot of the Detroit Lions head coach, Dan Campbell, and that is exactly the type of coach we are getting with him as an elite culture builder. So he was a walk-on tight end. Walk-ons don't even typically make the team, but not only did he walk on, he went to become a consensus All-American as a tight end, having 2,500 yards and 15 touchdowns basically as a tight end. And you just look at him and he is built a lot like Dan Campbell, and then you see him go straight from being a very productive All-American tight end to then a graduate head coach or a graduate coach on several different teams. He bounced all around, ended up doing his largest stint in college at the University of Rutgers, but he also coached special teams units at the University of Rhode Island, where he went, Northeastern University, and then New Haven University. And from there, you see him get his first chance in the NFL, and he went to the Miami Dolphins. He took over for a Miami Dolphins special teams unit, and when he took over, they were the 24th ranked special teams unit, and then within 1 year, he gets them jumped up 22 spots to be the second best special teams unit in the entire NFL. Now, that is a huge, huge feat, and you just see, as a special teams coordinator, you are coordinating a bunch of guys who have to accept their role. They have gone from being the best player in probably the history of their high school to being like a positional player on a special teams unit. That takes a ton of leadership ability. It's probably easy to coach a running back because it's hey, you're getting the rock, you are the dude. But when you are on a special teams unit, you go from being your high school quarterback to maybe you're running gunner on a special teams unit. And that's very, very difficult to do. I've worked in public education my entire career, and of all of the high schools I've worked in we're talking 15 years, I've had one player make the NFL and so you have the best player in the history of your high school, and they don't even make it. So to do that, to take a bunch of guys who were 24th ranked up to 22 is wild, but it gets even more wild than that throughout that, he consistently has had his teams in the top 5 best special teams unit despite the different head coaches that have come in. So in Miami, he had all top 5 special teams unit, despite the fact that he was coaching guys from Tony Sperano's group, Joe Philbin's group, and then Adam Gase's group. So he survived 3 different head coaching tenures. You know, each time you get a new head coach in there, you are completely turning over that roster. And despite that, he is consistently cranking out teams that are in the top 5. So when he left for the New Orleans Saints, his team made a massive jump down the other way. So you see Darren Rizzi comes in, you jump into the top 5, you leave, you drop out. So his last year there with Miami, because of some head coaching turnover, he dropped out of the top 5, and his group when he left was a top 7 group. And then within 1 year, you see it drop down to the second to worst team in the entire league. So you see it jump up 22 spots when he gets there, drop 24 spots when he leaves. Now, looking at him in New Orleans, absolutely historic success and the best modern day special teams coordinator in the league in my estimation. So he's there from 2019 to 2024, and we'll talk about him being as the interim head coach in a second. But when he was there, he had 4 top ranked units in 5 seasons, pretty wild. He had the number 1 special teams unit in 2019, the number 2 in 2023. He had 3 all-pro selections in 1 season. That just very, very rarely happens as well. He had a ton of players also make the all-rookie team, which he's going to need to get a lot out of rookies here with your Denver Broncos. And to do that in New Orleans is a feat in and of itself. We're not talking about him being in one of these blue blood systems. I don't think any of us, unless you have followed New Orleans for a long time, can grasp how struggling of a franchise this has been, and why I think Sean Payton is so elite. But the New Orleans Saints went a 20-year period without even sniffing the playoffs. They went almost a 20-year season without even being a 500 team. So from 67 to 86, they had 0 winning seasons, and then 67 to 87, they had no playoff berths. So to do that in New Orleans is absolutely wild. So you look here, the Dennis Allen, y'all remember him from his time with the Denver Broncos. He was the head coach. They were on a 7-game losing streak, and they fired him mid-season. Darren Rizzi takes over, And we remember how bad that Saints team was. We played them on Thursday Night Football and absolutely dog walked them. They were a very, very bad franchise. So he takes over as the interim head coach, and he went 3-5. So that doesn't seem like a fantastic record, but for how bad that team was, that is getting absolute diamonds out of the rough there. And so you look at him, and in that 3-5 record, it's way better than Dennis Allen did. And they only lost 2 games of those 5 were blowout losses. 3 of those 5 were actually 1-score games. So to me, that's a very impressive feat. And you just hear, I mean, and they're doing it with Spencer Rattler, one of the worst quarterbacks drafted in the draft last year. So to do that with a rookie quarterback who's thrown in midseason and to only lose 2 of those games in double digits, I think that is a very impressive feat. You heard a ton of players come out and get his back and just say hey, he reinvigorated this team, and he does it through storytelling and props, and he is cut from the exact same mold as a Dan Campbell and a Sean Payton. He talked about how the New Orleans Saints had to dig themselves out of this hole, and so he had these props, and he was wearing a Bob the Builder costume, and guys were absolutely loving it. And so he matches the intensity of a Dan Campbell with the storytelling and the X's and O's of some elite head coaches. So much so that you have all of his players come out and just bang the table for saying, please make him permanent, please make him permanent. So you had Alvin Kamara come out and say, all right, my vote for who our next head coach should be rhymes with Fizzy. So obviously he's saying, hey, hire Darren Rizzi. I want him to stay here. The New Orleans Saints did not go that direction. I think they will regret it. You see Jason Taylor, again, an all-pro, come out and say, hey, we need to recognize him as being insane. Give him the head coaching job. Absolutely. You see another team captain, Demario Davis, come out and tell the ownership group there's no one in this whole organization that would not run through a wall for Coach Rizzi. So they went away. They did not end up hiring him, but that is going to be for our benefit. You see he is successful every place that he goes, and just the fact that throughout NFL, throughout his history, his tenure, he has coached 12 of his 13 units that he has coached have been in the league's top 15. Throughout his time of all of those years, he's had 7 players on special teams make all pro selections. He's had 8 players make the Pro Bowl. He's had 6 players make all rookie teams. He is pretty much the most elite you can get at that position. And if the Denver Broncos were already a playoff team last year, were already young and hungry, already basically tied at halftime in Buffalo for their first ever playoff game, what are we going to do this year with him? And it's absolutely wild that now he gets to coach what I think is one of the most accurate kickers in the NFL. I love Will Lutz. You looked last year. He basically had a 91% field goal percentage. He was 10 for 11. We know he doinked one in that playoff game when we really were hoping that he was going to make that. He made 100% of his extra points last year, something you cannot discount. Obviously, we know we lost to our bitter rivals because of a blocked field goal. We know how big special teams are in the NFL, and we would have been undefeated with the Chiefs last year had we had Darren Rizzi. I can guarantee you that. You also then throw into the mix the fact that he's going to get to coach Marvin Mims, who's already made 2 All-Pro teams or 2 Pro Bowl teams in addition to that he's returned 15 kicks for almost 400 yards and 1 touchdown. He's returned 45 punts for 720 yards. He is an absolute speed demon. That is going to be wild for Darren Rizzi to get, especially because we know the NFL kicking rules just changed, and we know there's not going to be a better coach who's going to be able to exploit those kicking changes than Darren Rizzi. And why did Rizzi choose to kind of reunite with Sean Payton? First off, it's Sean Payton is an absolute stud, and everyone in the NFL wants to coach with him, despite what some of the national drive-by media will tell you. And in addition to that, he's thrilled about coaching what he calls the best prospect he has ever taken a look at. So he came out and talked about our new punter, Jeremy Crawshaw, the Australian kicker, and said he's the most talented prospect as I have ever looked at. And we have the stats. He's coached 7 All-Pro players, 8 Pro Bowl players. He always has top units, and he's saying, hey, our punter has the ability to be nasty, and our punter's going to get a kick at altitude half of his game. So this is going to be wild. And before you look away and say, oh, special teams doesn't matter, it absolutely matters. Someone did a meta-analysis of one of the best coaches of all time, Bill Belichick, and throughout his conferences in New England, he mentioned the word kick, punt, or special teams almost 4,000 times. It absolutely matters. We know this is a game of inches. and a 3-yard difference in your starting field position gives you a tremendous bigger advantage of scoring or stopping the other team from scoring. I just did a quick thing, and I took 7 random games in the NFL. And I think I did this for last season. And if you took that 7-game span, the top 3 in average starting field position were 15-1, and the bottom 3 were 4-12. It absolutely matters. It is a game of inches, and we have a secret weapon who is going to get us all of the inches. Plus, then once we do it, we got Bo Nix slinging the rock. The Denver Broncos are in fantastic position. We have a secret weapon, and Broncos country, we've got a ton to Bo-LIEVE in. Also, check out this video we did on Davis Webb. Like, man, how did we load up so much? This is wild.